To pursue the theme of TI versus NI, dominance I mean, a little bit, I just want you guys to consider that there is, in both cases, a certain motif that seems to be common between them. But once you look a little bit closer, you realize that the ramifications are quite different. So the motif that we could, ascribe to it is otherworldliness, okay? And if you have read my books, you're probably familiar with what I call alienation from external reality and the fundamentally otherworldly nature of anti-dominant existence. If you're not familiar, you should check out my books, The Ecstatic Soul, where I developed these concepts first. The New Look at the INFJ Personality, which is the deepest investigation of the INFJ that you'll find. The link is below, as well as my recent book, The Infinite Soul, on INFJ life in the world. What's an INFJ in the world like? Want to know more? Check this book. Now, there's a fundamental estrangement from external reality, and there is a distinct texture and color of external reality as it is experienced by the INFJ and the INTJ as otherworldly. Now, when you read TI dominance, when you engage with TI dominance, particularly INTPs, ISTPs, you won't get that as much if they have SE well integrated for obvious reasons, because SE is a very hooked to the world kind of function. It's possible that in the case of ISTPs that are mostly TI-NI with SE repressed, you'll get that otherworldliness, you will get it, but it's just less likely because of SE auxiliary, and because SE auxiliary is not repressed that often, because it's a function that brings pleasure, simply enough. But it can happen, for sure, due to a variety of different historical events and developments. In any case, there is a certain otherworldliness when you read Immanuel Kant, TI dominant. There is a certain otherworldliness when you read Kripke. There's otherworldliness when you read, like logicians. But it's not the same kind of otherworldliness. And if you can tell the difference, that's a big clue to whether you understand the fundamental difference between TI and NI. Leaving aside even for now, the question of, well, obviously one is a function of judgment, the other is a function of perception. And that means rational versus non-rational functions in the terminology of Jung. We don't need to consider that for now. What I want you to consider is that in NI dominance, there is a longing for a world that the NI dominant can be connected with. They feel a certain nostalgia. It's always in the backdrop. And in a sense, there is a desire to connect with the world as it is. But it's so difficult that the NI dominant often creates alternative realities, perceives alternative realities as a glue to help them cope with and negotiate being in the world right here. In other words, to deal with alienation, they have to get a little bit creative. TI dominants, particularly INTPs, don't feel that level of alienation. They are in the world. They just so happen to think that the world is a bit boring. A bit boring because the world is the world. It's human. It's irrational. At least it has a lot of irrational sides to it. It has a lot of fat. It's not very beautifully constructed in their eyes. There's a lack of perfection. There's a lack of purity. Okay? And the elaborate otherworldly constructions, which are not a product of their existential relationship to reality, like in the NI dominance case, they're really creations of their thinking, they're creations of their thought, are beautifully abstract and very, very clearly and unambiguous constructions, especially in the case of philosophers. You see that because that's where it's best illustrated, or logicians, or mathematicians. But they do this because, in a sense, they want to have another world because the world right there is impure. Unconsciously, that's the process. So they get to construct their perfect world, but it ends up being otherworldly because it is so different from the imperfect world we're in. In the case of the NI dominant, this other world that we're talking about is ultimately their NI world, and is used as a bridge to relinking with this imperfect world that they could never quite connect with in the first place. So the movement is different. In one case, it's like taking a break from the world, escaping from the world that one is already clearly in. That's the TI dominant. In the other case, it's seeking to return to the world that one was never really in to begin with via the bridge of another world. And that's the NI dominant. Don't forget, guys, that I have a Patreon page that you can support. You can go to. The link is below to support me. I could not do it without you. To keep the channel going, I'd be so grateful if you consider supporting me in these times. You get access to some really cool perks, like access to our Discord server, the Fourfold, where you can meet me and a lot of other people, as well as bonus videos every 2-3 weeks on the topic of your choosing, deep dives of 20 to 30 minutes. If that sounds interesting, see you on Patreon, guys. Thank you, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.